Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. I do have one quick favor before we get to the video that you came here for, and that is very simply this. You see that little red subscribe button below this video? Go ahead, smash that subscribe button. It really does help me. It really does help this channel grow and my audience grow. So go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. And now, here is the video that you came here for. All right, everybody, let's get into a pretty big piece of news as it pertains to college basketball and the college basketball offseason that came on Monday. Obviously, Monday, of course, is a big day on the college basketball calendar because we will get the first two tickets punched to the Final Four. I'm actually recording here just a few minutes before Oregon State and Houston tip-off. Obviously, Baylor, Arkansas will be after that. But the news that I want to talk about came from the transfer portal, and as I told you last week, the transfer portal is about to provide us with a ton of really good information and really good content over the next couple weeks. I truly believe that as I get set to record here, as I am recording here on March 29th, there are already as many or if not more good players, difference-making players at the high major level. There are more of those guys in the transfer portal already on March 29th than there have been in entire seasons. I talked about why last episode. Obviously, a lot of players are using the extra year of eligibility to kind of see what is out there for them. Some guys just are ready to leave because of COVID. They want a fresh start. Some guys want to transfer up. There's the one-time transfer rule that we think is going to pass, but the bottom line is transfer news is going to be huge here over the next couple months, and a mega piece of news did come down on Monday afternoon when Kellan Grady, a four-time All-Atlantic 10, All-A-10 guard, made his college decision. And as it pertains to the transfer portal, there might not be many more single important decisions than this one because Kellan Grady chose to go to the University of Kentucky. And when you take who Kellan Grady is, what he does well, and what Kentucky so desperately needs, this to me is as important of a commitment as I expect us to get all offseason when it comes to the transfer portal. For people who are not familiar with Kellan Grady, he is, put simply, one of the best pure scorers in college basketball. He has been over the last 4 seasons. In 4 seasons in the Atlantic 10, which is one of the best conferences in college basketball, he has averaged at least 18 points in all 4 seasons. He has shot at least 37% from the three-point line in 3 of those 4 seasons, including this current season, which just finished, in which he shot 38.2% from the three-point line. He did it in a really good league in the A-10 that routinely produces multiple NCAA tournament teams. This year was no exception. VCU and St. Bonaventure made it. St. Louis was really good. Richmond was really good. And this is a guy that has been able to produce throughout his career in a really good conference. And for people that say, oh, it's only the A-10. Well, first of all, never forget, multiple bid league. I'm not calling it the ACC or the Pac-12 or the Big Ten or whatever. But they have multiple NCAA tournament teams, and I would also say he performed in some of their biggest games against some of the best competition. He had 17 this year against Providence in the Maui Invitational. That wasn't actually in Maui. He had 19 against Vanderbilt, 32 in an A-10 conference tournament game. And so I bring it up to say this guy has consistently scored, but consistently scored against good opponents as well. But why it is so important is not just because this guy is a volume scorer, but because he is exactly who Kentucky needs. If you watched even a second of Kentucky basketball this year, this is what you need to know. They weren't very skilled, and they certainly couldn't shoot the ball. And obviously it has become a big topic over the last year, 2, 3, 4 with John Calipari. Through the years, he has believed in size, athleticism, length, power down low, and he's readily admitted. Say what you want about Cal, but he admitted it this offseason. I have not put enough of an emphasis on skill in basketball, and when you watch Kentucky all season long, they were clearly lacking skill. They were trying to get by on athleticism, and when they would play a team like Alabama, when they would play a team like Arkansas, they simply could not keep up. They simply were not skilled enough to beat the kinds of teams that you now need to beat in 21st century 2021 college basketball. Well, getting Kellan Grady is a great first step. And I'll be perfectly honest. Based on some of the guys that Kentucky has coming back, I'm kind of starting to like this roster. Now, I don't want to oversell it because I am the guy that said I thought Kentucky was going to win the SEC this year. And I don't want to sell it because I also am the guy that said Olivier Sarr was going to be a huge impact player at Kentucky this year, and he wasn't. But if you strictly look at the team and the need, Kellan Grady fits perfectly. And just as important, I like how he fits with the players that Kentucky has coming back. And in a credit to Kentucky, I actually give a lot of their guys credit. Rather than run into the transfer portal, rather than saying this didn't work, the guys that you were expecting and hoping to come back, for the most part, have. Devin Askew has come back. Dante Allen says he's coming back. Lance Ware says he's coming back. Jacob Toppin says he's coming back. And I think all of those guys with an offseason could have success at Kentucky, and we'll get into the offseason and all those dynamics in a minute. But those guys that you need to develop within your program all say they're coming back. And so when you look at how Kellan Grady fits with this roster, he just provides another shooter and another scorer that this team so desperately needs. Now, what I would say is the single biggest priority for Kentucky is still going to be a playmaker off the dribble, a playmaker that can beat guys off the dribble, get to the rim, pass the ball, get other people involved, and they need to get that guy, whether it is Marcus Carr, who played at Minnesota this year, who is testing the NBA draft waters but will transfer if he comes back to college basketball, whether it is Justin Powell, who played at Auburn this year but is originally from Kentucky. Whoever that guy is, Kentucky still needs that player. But in terms of everything else, I like how the pieces fit. You now have Kellan Grady, who is a scorer at all three levels. At the college level, he has proven he can do it. He is mature. He is going to bring a level of maturity to this program. In a year where there was no consistency, no maturity, the few players that kind of showed that kind of grown-up attitude, a guy like Davion Mintz, it was because he had played college basketball for 3-4 years. So you have Kellan Grady. You have Devin Askew, who I think can be a good off-the-ball guard in college. I don't think he's going to be an All-American, but I do think you put him off the ball, you let him kind of make plays in the corner, I think he can be effective. I know he only shot 28% from three last year. Again, you give him a full offseason, I think he can be a major contributor in college basketball. It's easy to forget that some of these guys, this kid was only supposed to be in high school, and sometimes it just takes a kid a little while to figure things out. Well, Devin Askew averaged almost 7 points and 3 assists as a freshman. For a Kentucky point guard, that is not what you're looking for. He will forever be compared to John Wall and De'Aaron Fox, but for a normal college point guard, that's not terrible. I think he comes back. I think he can be effective. There's still the possibility that Davion Mintz comes back. If he comes back, all of a sudden Kentucky just became a really good three-point shooting team, as Davion Mintz was tied for the leading scoring spot at Kentucky in 2021, best three-point shooter, and I think he'll be a huge X factor, and I think there's a real possibility that he comes back. Obviously, Dante Allen saying he's coming back, can shoot the three ball. And then you look at all the other pieces. You got Lance Ware down low. You got Oscar Tshiebwe, the transfer from West Virginia. Still don't know how to say his name. Is it Tshiebwe? Is it Tshiebwe? I don't know. All I do know is that guy is going to provide power and toughness and physicality, something that I think this team was sorely lacking last year. There's obviously the possibility that Keon Brooks comes back. And Damian Collins, the five-star freshman, I think will provide some rim protection. So you start to look at all the pieces and how they come together. I think they can be really good. I didn't even mention Bryce Hopkins, a wing who was the Illinois State High School Player of the Year this past year. Nolan Hickman, who is another guy who I think could be a good 2, 3, 4-year college point guard. And I hate to say it, I'm starting to like this roster. Still think you need that X factor at point guard, but I love how this roster is starting to come together. Not saying they're going to win the national championship, but I do think this year was a little bit of an aberration. And again, I think if you get this whole thing back to normal, if by June and May we can get players back on campus, they can have a normal offseason, they can work out when they want, they can get into the gym when they want, I think this now shapes up to be a really interesting and really good team in 2021-2022. Finally, let me say this. I got to give a little credit to John Calipari. Now, that doesn't mean I'm giving him a pass for what happened this season, because he is the guy that put together the roster in 2021, and it was a flawed roster. And I get it. He was recruiting elite high school players. He thought there's no reason when Terrence Clark and B.J. Boston signed and committed to think that they weren't going to get the normal Kentucky experience, the normal Kentucky offseason. But when you look at what happened with him at Kentucky, there wasn't a reason to think it would be this bad, and so I'm not giving him a pass. The players on the roster were still byproducts of his recruitment. The flaws on this roster, no elite point guard, no real three-point shooting outside of Dante Allen and Davion Mintz. I'm not making an excuse for it, but I also do give him a little bit of credit because at the same time, I think it would have been easy for him to sit there and say, I'm a Hall of Famer. I don't need to listen to anybody. I'm going to do things my way. And we'll see if things change. But I do think it is a step in the right direction that as soon as the offseason hit, he readily admitted, I need to change this roster. I need to reimagine how things look. Basketball is changing. It is more about skill. It is less about athleticism. And if I don't change, I'm going to get buried. Well, this is a major first step, and we'll see what happens. I'm not saying Kentucky's going to be back to winning a national championship next year. But what I am saying is John Calipari is taking the proper steps, the proper adjustments to build what a basketball team should look like in 2021. Beyond that, I would also say I give him credit that he's really going all in on this transfer stuff. I've told this story before, but about 2, 3, 4 years ago, I reached out to Kentucky about a guy and said, hey, there's a kid that just entered this transfer thing. I don't even know if they called it the portal back then. You guys got to give him a look. And I was basically told, hey, we don't really recruit transfers here at Kentucky. This was before Reed Travis. This was before, this was before Nate Sestina and Davion Mintz and all that. But I only bring it up very simply to say that it wasn't all that long ago that John Calipari wanted to rebuild his roster with freshmen every single season. I don't think he's going to do that anymore. I think he understands the value of the transfer portal, and this is another way where this guy is evolving. I am not giving him a pass for this season. I am not saying that it is completely fine and no big deal that you went 9-16 or whatever it was. That is not what I am saying at all. What I am simply telling you is credit where credit's due from the perspective that he realized that this season fell on him, that this season was his responsibility, and that he finally seems to be willing to build a team that looks like a 21st century college basketball team. And that's all I really have to say about Kellan Grady. Thank you guys for listening to this video. If you like this video, do me a favor, click the subscribe button so you get all sorts of content, all sorts of updates here on the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. Also, make sure to find me on Twitter at Aaron_Torres. Find me on Instagram at Aaron Torres Pod.